Rich, give this presentation on Final Five, which is a form of ranked choice voting. And it really kind of struck me that we really need to look at the voting processes that we have and how can we take money out of politics, how can we take power out of politics. And this was one of the possible solutions. So I asked him, and Tracy and Rich said, yeah, we'll do it. And I said, yay. Okay, so help me welcome Rich and Tracy from Voters First.
Okay, well, hello everybody.
Hi.
It's a great honor to be here. Thank you, Linda, for inviting us. You know, when I first got the word that Linda wanted us to come here, I was super excited, right? I heard a lot about this group, and you certainly live up to your name. But then my wife was like, why'd they invite you? You're not a woman, and you're definitely not active. And so, like, they should have me speak. But anyway, you know, I'm not a woman. I'm not active, but I am certainly passionate and purposeful about what we want to talk today. So, as Linda said, we're going to talk about Final Five voting, and I'm very excited to bring it to you. So hopefully you guys had good experience with the cookies. Thank you to all the volunteers. I have a personal favorite, but I will not reveal that until the end, so as not to influence any late voting here. But look, I want to cover a few things today, and this is what we want to cover. I want to go over just kind of the political backdrop, share with you an overview of Final Five voting, and specifically tell you some of the problems that Final Five solves. Also want to talk about our theory of change to make Final Five a reality here in Wisconsin, specifically the path to passage that we on our little team here see a way to inspire hope. We're definitely going to cover the results of the voting, because I think you all want to see which cookie won. Then there's a special guest who couldn't appear here in person, but she's going to give a little personal testimony about this. And lastly, we'll close with how you can help. All right, so a little bit about me. I'm from New Berlin, Wisconsin. You guys ever been there? Been there for over 30 years now. I've got 3 grown kids. I've got a little fur child, that's Tara, who is female and active, so Lena said she would be better speaker than I am, but hey. I spent over 30 years at General Electric, so I'm retired now. Politically, I am what I guess you would consider a pre-2016 conservative, if that means anything anymore. I don't even know what that word means, but I'm still someone who believes that truth matters and character counts, okay? I hate politics. Politics distorts. Politics gets in the way. It does not tell the truth, and it seems that character doesn't count. But I love policy, because when we can craft good policy, it lifts up everybody, and that is, I think, a noble goal that we as citizens should all, aspire to. I launched Voters First with Lena back in 2018. I retired from GE in 2021 during the pandemic. It was actually, I'd always wanted to retire early. I retired around 55. But really when I saw what happened with my own tribe on January 6th, I said, I got to do something to help make a difference. And so Lena and I started this. Glad to be joined by such great people as Tracy and Pac and Cindy, Bob and Dan. So it's really, really good to be involved, to make a difference and inspire hope. And speaking about people who make a difference, I'm very glad today to see that Representative Udell, your representative here right in Fitchburg, 8047, has been able to join us in spite of the rain. Let's give a big welcome to Representative Udell.
Thank you for that warm welcome.
All right, so a little bit about Voters First. So we are a cross-partisan, we are a cross-partisan group, people, left, right, and center, everything in between. We take a nonpartisan approach to trying to fix our broken political system. All of us are volunteers. We accept small donations, but what we're trying to do is really, really focus on Wisconsin, even though we're aware that our efforts have national impact. We have a very simple vision. We believe that good candidates leads to good governance, which leads to good society. And I'm not just talking about good in the competence sense, I'm talking about good also in the character sense. And our mission is very simple. We want to fix our broken political system in two ways, by ending corruption and electing uniters. Too many people want to divide us, and hey, I'm tired of that. We want to have people who unite us and inspire the hope that we're all Americans. We can do that by finding common ground to solve our common problems. All right? So we go after ending corruption and electing uniters through 4 different initiatives that we have. The first one is money in politics. Anybody think that we don't have enough money in politics? Okay, it's just insane through the roof. That's another talk on another day, but we work on that. We also want to make sure that people have access to voting and that people can trust our elections. Very, very important. We are involved with the Fair Maps group. Any of you guys ever hear of Fair Maps? Okay, yep, so we work with them on nonpartisan redistricting. But today's topic is on Final Five voting. And as you'll see, Final Five voting can give a lot of benefits to our current political system today. So we don't do this alone. We are part of the Wisconsin Voters Coalition, and there's a bunch of people a bunch of different organizations who are all involved. And each of us plays a different role, but collectively we work together. So for example, Democracy Found, they are the lead organization for us in trying to pass Final Five voting. Ditto for the Fair Maps group, which is under the umbrella of Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. They're the lead for nonpartisan redistricting. And then for Money in Politics, both Wisconsin Democracy Campaign have a role here at the state level, and American Promise is an organization that we work with at the national level to try to tamp down and make money in politics accountable, responsible, and transparent. The whole theory of the case is, look, no group can do it alone. We are stronger together. All right? All right, let's talk a little bit about our political backdrop. How many of you guys love our political system today? Raise your hands. Don't all rush. Don't all jump up at once. Yeah, it was a rhetorical question, right? I mean, I think all of us know that, hey, this is pretty messed up. In fact, I want to share a video from the person who founded Democracy Found. That he talks a little bit about her perspective on how Washington is broken. Give a listen to Catherine Gale here.
But it's not true. I'm Catherine Gale, founder of the Institute for Political Innovation, and I'm here to bust some myths about American politics. First up, the myth that Washington is broken. It isn't. It's doing exactly what it's designed to do, which is to serve our 2 major political parties and their surrounding companies, not the public interest. Politics isn't an institution. It's a $20 billion industry, and it's plagued by toxic levels of unhealthy competition. In every other industry, success stems from healthy competition, from creating innovative products and happy customers. But in the politics industry, success doesn't depend on quality products like good legislation that would please the customers, the voters. The truth is, there's virtually no connection between our public officials acting in the public interest and the likelihood of their getting reelected. To win, they just need you to choose them as the lesser of 2 evils. So do you see? Washington isn't broken at all. It's fixed. And while the politics industry thrives, the rest of America, we lose out.
Yep, definitely fixed, right? Interesting use of the term. So if you look at just different surveys, here's a survey that Gallup just did at the beginning of this year that just looked at, hey, what do Americans think are the top problems in the country? And sure enough, at 29% of the population has polled, showed that government is the most mentioned problem in the U.S., right? There's economy in there, cost of living, immigration, but government is up there. Likewise, Pew Research, they did a great study last year, And they talked about the top 5 things that Americans say is a very big problem, so slightly different question. But, it converged, right? You got some of the economic indicators in there. But at number 5 for them, they said it was the ability for Democrats and Republicans to work together that made it into the top 5, right? And I think we're seeing all of that. And when Democrats and Republicans can't work together, are they ever going to be able to fix the issues that we care about? No, again, a rhetorical question. We took a little poll of our team. This is what our team cares about, right? Just basic, living wages stands out there, inequality, affordable housing, defending democracy. All of these things are just important. But nothing will ever happen unless we get people working together again. And what makes this difficult is that we, if we're members of parties, we tend to think that, if only my entire party can win or the other party can win, we can then do everything that we want to do, right? But let me show you a little history here. If you go back and you look at the US Senate, there's a rule called cloture. How many people have ever heard of cloture? All right, you guys are very informed. So you know that the Senate has to reach 60 votes in order to be able to move any bill forward. But let me ask you this. When's the last time that any party sent 60 votes or whatever the equivalent was back then to achieve this? It's been since 1976. Okay, literally, if you want to get anything done single-handedly, you need to have 60 votes, and that's not happened for any party over the last 50 years. So the likelihood of that happening at any time soon, I think is pretty low, right? So if you want to get anything done and you really care about your customers, per Catherine's model, voters, us, you have to develop a different skill, because passing any non-reconciliation Senate bill requires you to work across the aisle. This is a great book. You guys all look like you love to read. I definitely recommend reading this from Jill Thompson. She's a former Indiana member of the House of Representatives, but talks about really great common sense things that we can encourage our politicians to do to work across the aisle. So when Congress doesn't work across the aisle, what happens? I mean, their level of productivity drops. You can see it very visible in the slide here. Right, way back when, in the 60s, they passed over 1,500 bills in a 2-year term. If you look at what happened recently here, we're now down, it was 157 at the time, but for that total term, the last term, 274 bills. That's it. Maybe some of the bills are bigger, but it's hard to argue that the productivity of Congress in passing good legislation that benefits all is way, way down. And not only is the productivity down, it's their approval and trust are in the toilet, right? So if you look at the chart on the left, how Americans rate Congress, it's really low. It's like at 10% right now. So that is a low point. You guys can see a high point when we used to trust Congress. Anybody know what point in time that was? Right in the middle over there. That was 9/11. It was a time that united our country. Great presidential approval, great congressional approval, but it's just tanked in the last 20 years. And if you look at the chart on the right, you can see who's America's most and least trusted professions. So I worked in healthcare. It's great to see that our healthcare folks are the most trusted. Do we have any people who work in healthcare here? Okay, good. Well, thank you for all that you've done to help save lives. As former GE healthcare leader, I certainly respect that. But guess who leads the very bottom of this pack? Okay, it's members of Congress. They have only an 8% approval, high approval, and a 58% very low approval. Right next to car salespeople. I hope there's no used car salespeople here. I knew some, they were fine people, but I have to look in the mirror. I'm a former business executive. I'm number 3, so you shouldn't be trusting anything I say, but critically think about what I share and see whether you want to trust me either. Well, look, we got just absolutely no trust, no productivity, and no approval. We are in the toilet. But guess what is amazing? Is that in spite of not being productive, in spite of having the worst approval and the smallest amount of trust of any profession, what is a congressman's re-election rate? It's like over 95%. And I'm looking at this, and I'm like, this just begs the question, right? What is going on? It's like, it makes no sense. If I worked in business, right? We would never get away with this type of behavior where we had these awful ratings from our customer, and yet I'm still the CEO or whatever I was. We voted out, I'd be kicked out by the board, whatever it is, you know, that's what should happen. It's not happening in Congress, right? So let me talk, I talked about the Senate. Let me talk a little bit about the House. So as you know, we have 435 seats. How many people know what a safe seat is? You guys heard that concept? So a safe seat is when one party has a lock that no matter which candidate is in that district, they're gonna win, right? If you are in a Republican state seat, you could run any Republican, the worst kind, the best kind, it doesn't matter, that Republican's gonna win. Conversely, same for Democrat, right? That's what a safe seat means. Well, we used to have more competition. Back in the 70s, we had over almost 100 seats that were very competitive. So that's more than a third of the Congress. Now, depending on how you count it, there's like less than 10%. Yeah, I looked at a great report. You guys might like Cook Political Report, where I got this chart. But really, their forecast for 2026, so the November elections, is that out of 435 seats, only 18 to 35 of them will be competitive. You know, at worst, that's a 4% competitive seat, and at best, it's a 8% competitive seats, right? If you count the lean left or lean right seats. So this does not bode well for healthy competition, for the exchange of ideas that our founders created the Constitution to encourage. And specifically, we go in detail, you probably can't read all this, but I did highlight in Wisconsin some of our safe seats. So on the left, you guys might know Mark Pocan, he's your representative, his seat very safe. Gwen Moore in Milwaukee, her seat very safe. Conversely, on the Republican side, you got Scott Fitzgerald, Glenn Grothman, and Tom Tiffany. Their seats are very safe. We got Brian Stile, anybody ever hear of him? His seat out in Racine, Kenosha area, kind of lean right, but it's not a given. But we have one seat that is very competitive, just a little bit to the west of us. Who's heard of Derek Van Orden? Anybody? Okay, so his seat is going to be a race for the fight of his life. So that's how we fit into this too. We're not immune to that at all. So when you look at safe seats, which election really matters more in determining a safe seat? Is it the primary election or the general election? Anyone hazard a guess? Yeah, it's the primary election, right? And it's the primary election because it's what I call the primary problem. Watch this video for next week.
This is a snapshot of America. This is a snapshot of America. And there's some folks on the far left and some on the far right. But most of us are somewhere in between. Now this is our Congress. They're becoming so divided and so extreme that working together to solve problems seems impossible. Which explains why the last Congress had a ridiculously low approval rating of just 20%. But somehow, 95% of them got reelected, which begs some big questions. The answer is because our representatives literally don't represent us. Because most of us don't elect them. Buckle up and we'll explain. Most of our voting happens in the general election, so we assume that's the election that matters. But it's not that simple. Today, 83% of congressional districts are so Democratic or so Republican that they're considered locked for one party or the other. And whichever party has a lock on the district will always have the winning candidate. So the general election is over before it even begins. That means the only election that actually matters is the one where each party picks their candidate. And that happens in the primary election. And here's the even bigger problem. Participation in primary elections is extremely low. And the voters that do participate tend to be the most partisan and the most ideologically extreme. The result is a small, often extreme minority of voters wind up deciding the vast majority of our elections. And that's how we keep getting a divided and dysfunctional Congress that fails to represent we, the people. Take 2020. Despite a record turnout in the general election, only 10% of all voters cast ballots in primaries. That effectively decided 83% of our congressional seats. Just 10%. This is the problem with partisan primaries. And it's the primary problem of our politics today. They create a system where hundreds of lawmakers only have to answer to the small, extreme base that elects and re-elects them. And the rest of us, the majority of us, don't matter. And neither do the problems we care about. The solution is actually simple. Our Constitution gives every state the freedom to replace their partisan primaries with a single, non-partisan primary. This will allow all voters to have the ability to support whichever candidate they want, regardless of party. The top finishers then advance to the general election, where whoever earns a majority of votes wins. Several states have already adopted nonpartisan primaries, from Alaska to California. We just need more to follow. Together, we can fix the primary problem and put voters first. We can have a Congress that actually represents us and solves the problems we care about.
All right. So that is a stark reality of the primary problem today, where 10% at the time of this video is now like 4 to 8% control over 83% of the seats. But Final Five voting addresses this, and let me walk through how it does that. So for Final Five voting, it's really a very simple two-part change to our current elections today. The first change that we make is we want to, as the video pointed out, have a combined ballot primary, where every person votes for just one person, their favorite person, but the top 5 advance to the general election. So just like you do today, you pick one, and that person, if they win, will be part of the 5 that enter into the general election. And then the second change comes in the general election, where we use what's called instant runoff voting, where voters rank the top 5 who advanced from the primary election, just like you guys ranked the 5 cookies, right? You guys voted in the primary. I saw that Linda had sent out the emails, and thank you for all for voting in the primary election. I think we had a very high participation rate, and hopefully we got a very high participation rate in the general election here. But in the general election, as you guys did, you just rank these 5 in the order of your preference. You don't have to rank all 5 if you don't want to, but it's certainly to your advantage to do that. And that's it in terms of the mechanics of Final Five voting. So when you guys did this general election now, how complicated was that? Was it, raise your hands if you thought it was simple. Okay, so near unanimous. It was fairly simple, right? We're all able to rank things. We can rank our favorite cereals, our favorite phones. I tell my mom to rank her favorite sons, but I kind of don't want to know the answer. I asked my wife to rank her favorite husband too, just to stack the odds, but she won't answer either. I'm like, okay, there are limits to Final Five. But look, let me show you a video that displays how you actually count these votes in Final Five. Because it's possible to count it by hand, but you'll see how the counting works. But obviously we prefer to use the voting machine. But watch this video.
Washington is broken. Over the years, it's the only political statement Americans agree on. Worse yet, we've come to accept it as fact. Newsflash, Washington is not broken. It's doing what it's designed to do. It's polarized. It's gridlocked. It's lost. The solution to revitalizing our democracy lies in a combination of top 5 primaries and instant runoff voting. These 2 innovations will reinstate healthy competition and ensure the accountability of elected officials. This system of top 5 primaries and instant runoff voting yields several benefits. For starters, it reduces partisanship. Candidates must appeal to the majority of voters in order to be elected. Ranking candidates in order of preference gives people the opportunity to vote for their favorite candidate without fear of helping their least favorite candidate get elected or feeling pressured to vote for the lesser of 2 evils. It's been shown to reward candidates who run more positive campaigns rather than ones who malign other candidates, because it's important to be people's second and third choices too. Here's how it works. With top 5 primaries, all candidates are listed on the same primary ballot. The top 5 vote getters, regardless of their partisan affiliations, advance to the general election. The general election is where instant runoff voting comes into play. The 5 candidates who won the primary election are listed on a general election ballot. Voters can then rank each of those 5 candidates in order of preference. The candidate who achieves the majority of votes, over 50%, is the winner. Unlike our current system where candidates can win the election without having the majority of the votes, if no one gets a majority, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated. Voters who selected that candidate as their first choice now have their second choice counted. This process of elimination and counting the next best candidate continues until one person achieves more than 50% of the total votes, resulting in the candidate with the broadest appeal winning the election. With top 5 primaries and instant runoff voting, every vote counts and every voice is heard.
All right, so that is the how of how Final Five works. Let me show you the why of why it works. It's very simple why Final Five works, because it does 2 things. It forces competition into the election process, right? We didn't have that competition before. Remember we talked about that concept of safe seats? Essentially, when you don't have competition in a marketplace and you have only 1 or 2 players, what is that called? It's a monopoly or duopoly, right? In our case, we kind of have a what in our political system? A duopoly, right? Two dominant forces that don't really respond to the market as well as it would if it was a free market. The other thing that Final Five voting does in terms of why it works is it changes the incentive for Congress. And the incentive is simply this: instead of I as a congressman trying to appeal to the primary voter, who tends to be more ideological and maybe may not be as interested in working together, might want to dominate, the incentive now is, hey, the election that matters is not the primary, it's the general election where you got to appeal to the 60 to 70% of the people who vote there. They have a very different view of what it means to succeed. They don't want dominance, they just want solutions that work for most people. So that is why Final Five voting works. And its origin story is very interesting. You saw Catherine present in the first video, and she, along with one of the professors that I studied from, Michael Porter, they put together this book called The Politics Industry. And it compared how politics is like a market, but it's like a market that's controlled by a monopoly or duopoly. And so they set about to think of a way, a theory, a mechanism of how they could break through this gridlock to save our democracy by applying free market thinking here. The forward is from Representative Mike Gallagher. Anybody ever remember Mike Gallagher? He's a former congressman from Wisconsin, Green Bay area, Republican. Met him multiple times, good guy. But he actually wrote the forward to this book in spite of the fact that even if he implemented Final Five voting in his area, it would make Green Bay more up for grabs. But he was a big believer in the system and the process and healthy competition than he was in power. So I'll give a lot of credit to him for that forward. And as I mentioned before, this can help. They wrote this so they could help spread the word about how we can fix the dysfunction in Congress. Just like, look, if you run a company, you better learn to compete pretty quickly, otherwise you will be out of business, right? That's the reality. So what are the problems that Final Five voting solves? Well, we think that it solves problems for multiple groups. The first and the most important is it solves problem for we, the people. So some of the things it solves is you don't have to worry about voting for the lesser of two evils anymore. You can rank the candidates in order of your preference, and know that if your first choice is eliminated, your second choice is right up there to back it up. You don't fear a wasted vote, right? That's what a lot of people who maybe aren't fully on board with what the Democrats do or fully on board with what the Republicans do, they feel like they can vote for somebody in the Green Party or the Libertarian Party and not waste their vote because the next closest thing to a Green is a Democrat and vice versa for a Republican Libertarian, right? They don't fear that. There's less negative campaigning. There's a professor who actually studies this. He's from Western Oregon University named Todd Donovan. He found that there was a less negative campaigning. I think we're all tired of it. It wasn't perfect, right? I'm not saying Final Five is going to make everybody, shout praises and sing kumbaya together. Certainly still going to be people bad-mouthing. Usually tends to be the front runner, but it makes everybody else who's not a front runner want to work a little bit more civilly, which who thinks we need a little bit more civility in our politics today, right? So even if it's not perfect, I welcome the chance to make some progress there. look, you win with a true majority in Final Five. Okay, it's a true majority of everybody who chooses to cast a vote. If you choose not to cast all five, that's totally fine, but then you can't say that you were prevented from voting. And so it's the true majority of whoever made it all the way to the final rounds here. And what Final Five does is, in addition to changing the way politicians can campaign, it also changes the way they can govern. I'll talk about in a little bit here for politicians. So if you're a politician, you also get benefits for Final Five. Specifically, you don't have to fear being primaried. How many knows what this word primary means? Okay, I see many of you have heard this. So I didn't know what it meant when I first started. I said, oh, I thought primary was a noun, right? Primary election. But it began to be a verb because that's what a party would do to you if you weren't ideologically extreme enough. If you're, say, like me, I'm an old-time conservative, right? And I still believed in truth matters and character counts. Let's say, hypothetically, that there was somebody who was a stronger voice who said, hey, I don't care about truth as long as I can win. But I wouldn't give up on that. Well, because I'm not as strong as this person, the party would pick this person to win, and I would be scared unless I got in line and said, hey, I'm just as on board with the party line. That would be being primaried, right? So as a politician, particularly if you're an incumbent, you don't have to worry about it anymore, because you would have to have done an awful job to not make the top five if you're the incumbent. Okay, that means voters are choosing 4 other people to be ahead of you, and or 5 other people to be ahead of you, and you not make it. So that's why you really should, as an incumbent, you should easily be able to do this if you've been doing your job, which is exactly what we want out of our politicians. There's a greater opportunity for new candidates. We'll talk about a state that uses a form of Final Five voting, and they exploded in terms of the number of people who felt they could win. Because simply, it's real simple. If before you had to win a party's primary, that makes it tough, right? Particularly if you're one of the big parties, it's very competitive. But if you have a chance to be part of not 1, not 2, but 5 people, a lot of people think, hey, I might have a chance. I still got to activate my folks to get out there and vote, but maybe I could make the top 5, and that's why it gives greater opportunity. Okay, I mentioned this earlier. A third benefit for politicians is they can focus on governing and solving problems and working across the aisle, right? So if you want to do that today, I'm talking at the federal level now. Again, look at, I just heard today, Representative Nancy Mace. Anybody ever hear of her? She lost her primary. Anybody know why she lost her primary? She's pretty extreme, but she wanted the president to release the Epstein files. And that is not in the party line with that particular party, and so she lost. But imagine if people actually wanted to solve that problem and hey, let's follow the law, let that Epstein Transparency Act, whatever, let's get that all released. She would not have to worry about the primary. She could focus on, let me work with the Democrats and Republicans who want to do this and get it done. So that is a big benefit in Final Five, is that you can focus on governing more and not just campaigning all the time. And for parties, this is a big thing. If you are a leader in the Republican Party, the Democrat Party, you really get annoyed if people do what's called crossover voting. If you are a Democrat and vote in a Republican primary, like you could do here in Wisconsin, right? You have to pick one ballot. We have pretty open primaries, but not like Final Five. You could do that, because what do people do in that case? They try to vote for the weaker person so that their candidate will have a better chance to win, right? That's called crossover voting, and both parties hate it. Final Five, you don't worry about that because everybody's on the same ballot anyway, and hey, go for it. You can still identify the candidates with your party ID, so you don't lose any of your branding there. And you can still promote your preferred candidate. There might be multiple Republicans running, multiple Democrats running. It's okay. You can tell people in your caucus when you get together for your convention. I think the Democrats just had their state convention just recently, right?
No, it's coming up.
Oh, it's coming up. It's
This
coming up.
weekend.
So they can tell, hey, this is who we prefer, and people will still know. And finally, there's no fear of the spoiler effect, right? If you're a Democrat, which party do you hate? Hate like the Greens, right? Because they could steal votes from you. If you're a Republican, which party do you hate? Libertarians, right? It's this constant fear of the spoiler effect. So you don't have that anymore with Final Five. So lots of benefits for people, politicians, and parties. And now I want to address a few things. Linda asked me to talk about different voting systems, so I won't go too in depth, but I do want to explain we have multiple voting systems to consider. Our first system is what we call plurality voting, or first past the post. That's the voting system we all use today. You pick one, and whoever gets the most votes wins. Okay, that's plurality voting. Ranked choice is like Final Five in the general election, but it misses the open primary aspect of Final Five. But ranked choice is very simple. You just rank candidates, except when you start to get like 40 candidates that you're asked to rank. Now it can be a little confusing, right? Because there's no limit on ranked choice. Final Five we talked about, open primary, top 5 advance, you rank them in general election. A couple other voting systems I want to mention. Star voting, that stands for score and then an automatic runoff. So instead of ranking candidates like you do in Final Five, you would score them on a scale of 0 to 5. So in Final Five, you could not, score people the same thing. In star voting, you can. Very similar to Final Five, except that it doesn't have the open primary concept. You could have more than 5 people, which makes it a little more complicated, but you can score, which is a little bit better than Final Five in that you measure a voter's not just direction in terms of rank, but also the intensity of how strongly someone feels about a candidate. And then last thing is fusion voting. Anybody ever hear of fusion voting? That's a new thing. It's been getting some traction. There's a group here in Wisconsin that's advocating for it. So fusion voting is a little bit different in that it's not like the other ranked choice or Final Five or star where you're comparing all of the rankings here. What it does is simply identifies that, hey, as a candidate, I am endorsed by both the Republicans and the Libertarians, or I am a Democrat and I have the endorsement of the Democrats as well as the Green Party as well as for X Party number 3. So you identify that, and it's probably easier if I show you a ballot. This is what a star voting ballot looks like. So you score them, you rate your top favorite candidate as a 5, you rate your worst candidate as a 0, and then you give a score, not a rank, a score to the remaining candidates if you want to. Then the top 2 candidates from that election, they go into a runoff. So it's an automatic runoff, and whoever got the most votes between those 2 candidates win. That's star voting. And then fusion voting, you could have a ballot that looks like either what you see on the right or the left. You could have a candidate listed multiple times under multiple parties, like Mary is. She's a member of Party A. She's also endorsed by Party B, the moderate party. I'm sorry, she's endorsed by the moderate party, the second one. Or you could have all their parties listed underneath them. So Jo Ray Perkins is both a Republican Party endorsed and Constitution Party endorsed. So the advantage of fusion voting is it's probably better for parties to manage things because it's party oriented, whereas star voting is better for voters, it's more voter oriented. But every voting system has its pros and cons, and that's kind of what this next chart is. So again, it's kind of a busy chart. I'm not going to cover everything. The long and the short of it is, actually, any voting system is better than what we have today. So we'll not accept perfection and let it hinder the progress here. But you can see in ranked choice voting, a lot of good things happen. Some of the things, it can be complex, particularly when you have, like New York once did in their Democratic primary, they had like 14 candidates that they had to rank. And it's a Democratic primary only, doesn't open up to the independents in New York. Star voting got some very good ratings. It does not address the primary problem though, unless they combine it with open primary like Final Five does. It has that element where the primary election is still the most important election, not the general. Also, it's never been tried anywhere in the US, unlike Final Five and ranked choice, where particularly ranked choices, lots of history in different elections. Then fusion voting got some good things here. It is used in New York right now, and there may be a path to pass this in Wisconsin that is a little bit easier than the legislative path that ranked choice voting or final five or star voting would have to go to, because they just need to get the Supreme Court to rule that the law from like 1897 banning fusion voting is unconstitutional to Wisconsin Constitution, and then we could use fusion voting. So that's kind of a quick and dirty comparison. I can happy to talk more about it later with people if they want, but we'll leave it at that and move on. All right, nearing the end here. How are we gonna make Final Five happen? Well, we have this theory of change that we think will work. In fact, we're gonna bet the farm that this is what works. We have our fine representatives like Randy Udell and the rest of his colleagues in Madison. They listen to multiple types of people. For example, they listen to the grass tops, people who lead businesses, are eminent, prominent political figures or figures in the community. We call them the grass tops. They listen to them. They also listen to normal person like me as a grassroots. They listen to groups like yours, right? This is a significant group. You guys are a constituent. Certainly you extended an invitation and your representative came, so I think that says something about both Randy and your group. But they listen, right? And another group that our folks in Madison, our representatives listen to, is both traditional media and new media. So our job, if we want this changed, it's incumbent upon us to make the case, right? It's our job to change the status quo. We have to make the case. We're going to work with all four of these groups to try to make the case that Final Five is better than what we have now. Please join us in supporting that. And this is who we have to make the case to, because we can only pass this legislatively. We are not a ballot measure state here in Wisconsin. This is not like fusion voting, a judicial case. We have to persuade two party leaders, one in the Assembly and one in the Senate, to get on board. We have to persuade two committees. It'll probably go to the election committee in both chambers. We have to get 50 Assembly representatives to vote for it, and we have to get 17 state senators to vote for it, and then we got to get one governor to sign it. That is what we have to do, the task before us to make this happen. All right? So not easy, but it's clear to me what needs to be done. And our team has not been idle. We've been working on this for a while. In fact, last term, we actually got bills introduced. Assembly Bill 563, Senate Bill 528 introduced Final Five voting on a bipartisan basis. We had 11 Republican co-sponsors, 11 Democratic co-sponsors. That was on purpose because we wanted to eat our own dog food, as you say, or practice what we preach. What do you want? We wanted to do things on a bipartisan basis, and we had an equal number of sponsors. The bills, not only were they introduced, they made it into committee. We got them into the election committees in both chambers, had a great discussion, and then some of the folks in the room here, we participated in the public hearings that we were able to obtain, so that was progress. This term, we said we're not going to introduce the bill. We're going to sit back and spend some time raising public awareness, talking to civic groups like yours and others, having private conversations with representatives and other of the key people in the four forces before, just to see if we can get people on board. Because it's next term, so next January, we want to see if we can do what we did in the last term, but get even further and ultimately pass this. Right? So this is the path to passage for Final Five and what all of our team are working towards.
Let me ask a question. What happened in 23-24 session that it public hearings, but did it not go to the floor for a vote?
Did not go to floor. So
I wasn't there then, that's why I'm asking.
right, yeah. So we, at that time, we did not expect it to get out, right? Because it's the first time we introduced him. So we said, okay.
So Speaker Bloss decided he wouldn't let it go to the floor in the Assembly, because he controls everything.
It was more Scott, I forget his last name, he was the leader of the Assembly Election Committee at the time. He was a good guy, but he didn't want.
Oh, so the committee.
The committee did not want to advance it.
Okay, so they didn't even take it up for a vote then, probably.
No, we never got to the floor. That
no,
was,
we had a vote in the committee.
Oh, yeah, it did not make a
Oh,
vote
okay.
in the
All
committee.
right, well, he was probably given the word not to make it go forward. Okay.
Right, so, yeah, that could be it, but, you know,
That's how that
Speaker
works.
Voss has retired and moved on, there's a
Yeah, okay.
different power vacuum, we can talk about that offline, but.
Yeah. No, those particular flaws kind of play into what you're describing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it was very, very funny, because Speaker Voss's wife's sister is my neighbor. Like, right next door to me, so it's a very interesting dynamic. You know, it's just funny. Okay, just real quick story. So I would go to the Republican convention back when I was Republican. He can be a very nice guy in person, but also can be ruthless in how he does things, right? Politically. But so it's a very weird to see how things play out. But I just thought I'd share that little anecdote. Another anecdote, I was at another convention. You know, some of you may have heard how Ron Johnson comes across sometimes. But I will say, in all fairness, so most of you probably the same impression I did, mostly negative. But there was one time at the Republican convention that was not broadcast, somebody came out from another state, a representative from another state was a guest speaker, and basically was really, I'll just say really, really far right. He got up next and said, that has no place in our party. So I'm glad he said that. Never made it in the papers. So there's a little more to politicians than you may realize. Certainly, I have my views, you have your views, but not everything is told. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, you have to sometimes be there to see how the sausage is made.
Unanswerable question, but what's the probability that this will go forward 27, 28?
So I am trying to get a sense for that on next Thursday. So we're meeting with HWZ, who is our firm that advocates for this. We're looking at who's all running, because all papers have to be submitted by June 1st, right? If you're running for November. So now we're gonna kind of start ascertaining what's the probability of people are gonna win, what's the dynamics, you know. Here's what I can tell you right now is we think the assembly is gonna be held by the Republicans. We think the Senate is going to flip, okay, because Devin Lemahue, he's not running again. It could be a Democratic Senate. Again, don't take my word, this is not, I'm just telling you what we're thinking about. So that will make an interesting dynamic, because when you have a split government, wouldn't you want Final Five to try to work together to actually get something done, right? So if they have that mindset, then that increases the ability for Final Five to pass. Or it could be that with split government, you know, the minority party just wants to do something bad and screw the other party. You know, I don't know that, right? I'm hoping that at the state level, we're much more reasonable than the federal level. The federal level is just crazy right now. And that we can find good faith, you know, working with Representative Udell and his colleagues, and say, guys, okay, we're Wisconsinites first, before we're Democrats or Republicans. Let's find a way to fix some of the things, because we're known for fixing things. We are a great purple state. There's no ands, ifs, or buts. Let's rise the occasion. So, long answer, I don't know, but I think it would be good if it's a split government.
Can I comment on that?
Yes.
I truly believe that the assembly is going to go blue.
Okay.
So, if you want to put it up.
Yeah.
Switch it, and I would think, at least based on an earlier slide of showing where the rank 5 is currently in play, that you would have, your odds would increase under a blue assembly. Am I wrong in thinking, as far as moving this forward?
I think you're right. Typically, we have had historically a little bit more Democrat support than we have had on the right. But we did have equal number of co-sponsors.
Okay, all right.
Right, but our math is like a little bit different, it's split.
Yeah.
But certainly, you know, it would be helpful to have more people friendly from either party.
Sure.
I will say Democrats in like Nevada shut this down. So
Okay.
my colleague
That's
in
interesting.
Nevada
Oh.
did not want, again, what's the incentive, right? It doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat, it's
Yeah.
whoever has power and control does not want to do this. Until I explained that slide, you know, had benefits for people, politicians, and parties. Okay, if you really are so ticked off that, you know, people are crossover voting, you kind of want to do this. So that's conversations that we'll continue to have. We got to work this. You know, it's definitely not easy. That's why I listed as red for legislative. But, you know, we're hopeful given the changing dynamics. All right. Who wants to see who the winner of our cookies are, right? So, let's walk through this. So here is the 50% line, right? You need to get 30 votes in order to win, because we want a true majority. All right, so we start out in round one. Who do we have winning so far? Chocolate chip. All right, we got oatmeal chocolate chip in second with 14 votes. But who's in last place? Peanut butter blossoms. Oh, that was my favorite. Election fraud, come on! Stop the steal, right? What is going on? So, according to the rules of Final Five, who gets eliminated? Peanut butter blossom, that is correct. So we go to round two, we eliminate peanut butter blossom. Peanut butter blossom had 8 votes. So what happens to peanut butter blossom's 8 votes? So whoever voted for peanut butter blossom as their first choice, like I did, their second place votes now count. So peanut butter had 5 people who voted for oat chip as their second place vote. They had 2 people vote for ginger molasses as their second place vote. And they had 1 person vote for snickerdoodle, God help their soul, as their second place vote, right? So do you see how we've taken peanut butter blossoms so that their vote still carries some weight here, right? All right, so in this round now, we got a new leader, but has anybody reached the 50% mark?
No.
Nope, you still got to get 30 votes, so we got to eliminate the lowest vote getter in this round, which is who? Snickerdoodle. Okay, that's the right call. All right, so Snickerdoodle has gone. They had 11 votes. Their votes went to their second or third place votes, depending on, to Chippy, Ginger, and Oatmeal. Ooh, this is interesting. The leader in the first round is eliminated because chocolate chip did not have the broadest appeal, right? So chocolate chip is eliminated. They sent 6 votes to Ginger and 10 votes to oat chocolate chip. So who's the winner? Oatmeal is the winner. So congrats, Oatmeal. Let's give Oatmeal a hand. We still want investigation tracing. We need to investigate this, but look, hopefully you had fun voting this. We want to have a little fun in politics, right? But was this hard to understand in terms of...
round one again?
Yeah, let's go back to round one. So yeah, Chippy was actually in first place in round one. Had 25% of the vote. So this is just a perfect picture of why Final Five works, because it's not just the people with the most intense first place votes. You got to have broad appeal.
If in round one someone had gotten the majority, would it be done, or do you
Yeah.
still go to all the others?
So if Chippy had gotten past 30, we'd be done. Okay, so that's simple. So hopefully you guys get a sense for how this is working and why we think it's really good. Yes, another question.
What does that do for the election process? I mean, how do you have to get all new machines or calculate all this? How do you do it?
Any machine since 2000 handles multiple voting systems, including the ranked choice element here. So it's not
a software issue, right?
It's just it's a software thing, right? You could also hand count Final Five. You could. I don't have a demo here. We could give one, but it's better to use the machines. But it is possible to do it hand count, so you could do it either way. Okay. Great question. Yes.
I don't have a question, but I'd like to make a comment that your slides are excellent.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
They're
My wife made them, so I'll.
Oh.
I'm not going to tell her.
They're excellent.
Okay. Thank you very much. There's another question.
Maybe you just say this, but how does it work in Alaska or other states?
So Alaska is the first state to do both the open primary aspect of Final Five and the ranked voting element. We have many states who do open primaries. We have many states who do ranked choice voting in some form, either at the city level or at the state level, either at primaries or generals. But Alaska is the first one to do both. And I want to hear you, or I want you to hear the story from State Senator Kathy Giesel, who is a Republican. Actually, she's the chair of the president of the Senate. So she's the leader, and we'll listen to her story about what she thinks about Final Five, or they call it Final Four. It's the same thing, but they only have 4 candidates. Let's listen for 3 minutes about what she has to say, okay? What has been your experience with Final Four voting in Alaska? We know originally you didn't like it, and then you came over, and tell us that story.
So I decided to run again in 2022 when, again, the seat was open. And I won significantly. The primary I won, which of course was an open primary now. There were 3 of us on the ballot, 1 Democrat and my opponent and myself. I won that primary, not by a huge number, but the top 4 go forward. So all 3 of us went forward to the general election. And in that election, I also won on the first count. But in Alaska, you have to achieve 50% plus 1. And so it went to ranked choice. It went to the ranked choice tabulation, and I won by double digits. So that was my experience, right? And I came back into the Senate, and we in 2022 formed a bipartisan coalition in the Senate. So we had 9 Democrats and 8 Republicans. 17 out of the 20 of us said, let's all work together. We also had huge changes in other elections where more moderate Republicans and more moderate Democrats won election, which made that bipartisan coalition very easy to form. So we've had a bipartisan coalition those 2 years and now again. In our House, the state House has 40 members. This year, for the first time, 21 of those House members are women. We have never before had a majority of women in one of the bodies in our legislature. Again, the result of the ranked choice voting, the final 4, and then ranked choice voting general election. So that's been our experience here. They have a bipartisan coalition this year in our state House. And so it really feels like a great achievement to be able to have more moderate voices in both of these bodies and to actually be able to meet together, talk about policies, talk about goals to bring Alaska forward. We were able to pass balanced budgets, not spend from savings, actually have some surpluses, even in very tight years. Now this year it's even more tight. We'll see how we come out this time. But we also are really moving forward things like election reform, looking at our retirement system to make it more equitable, policies like that.
That's great story, Senator Giesel. I mean, just to work together, it sounds like this new system incentivizes that type of collaboration, would you say?
Yes.
So that was Senator Giesel. She is the majority leader. She is a Republican who was originally, she didn't mention this, she was originally dead set against Final Five. But then she lost in her election because somebody to the right of her, so she's similar to background to me in the sense that she's a pre-2016 type of Republican, and she got primaried and lost. But then they passed via ballot measure this Final Four voting initiative, and she was able to come back because she talked to did her best to hit every single person in her district, and they overwhelmingly let her win the primary, and then she won the general election. So now she's a different person. She's now a believer in the power of this, and you heard her mention that it incentivized them to work together. That was the theme that I mentioned earlier, right? We want to elect uniters, people who unite rather than divide. They are the only state out of all 50 states who have not just one, but both chambers in their state legislature. They have a bipartisan majority caucus. They have 20 people in their Senate, right? They had 3 hardcore Republicans who said, there's no way we'll ever work with the Democrat, compromise is a 4-letter word, blah, blah, blah. The rest of the Republicans weren't as hey, we gotta get stuff done. We gotta work with the Democrats. And I'm not sure if the Democrats had any far left people who said, there's no way we'll work with 1 or 2. Okay. So thanks, Tracy. But the more conciliatory group who actually wanted to get stuff done, roll up their sleeves, do work for Alaskans. They got together in both the Senate and the House and said, look, we're going to be the majority caucus. We will set the agenda. We'll pick our leaders. I think that's a beautiful thing, right? Because now you're going to respect the different views here, as opposed to say, we're going to do it all ourselves. You saw that slide before on the Senate, right? The last time we had a single party control was like over 50 years ago. So I think it's a very practical move. They did cross-party endorsements when they were campaigning. She actually, if you've heard of Mary Peltola, the representative from Alaska, she endorsed Mary Peltola for Mary Peltola's U.S. congressional seat, even risking the scorn of the Republican Party of Alaska, who censured her for doing that. All right? So that shows how she did not fear getting primaried by having Final Four and could do a good thing of talking about teamwork. And they got stuff done, right? They had a budget surplus. When's the last time we ever had a budget surplus in the U.S. at the federal level? Right, like back in the 90s, and not just the budget for that year. It's not the full debt, right?
Yeah.
They did election reform, which is always a tough topic. They improved their retirement system, which is a big deal. And they made the indigenous people feel more represented. And I love this. This fits right with your group. They inspired more women to run and to win. I think that's incredible that they actually have more women than men in their chambers of Congress. So look, that's the end of the presentation. If there's any action, subscribe to our newsletter, connect with us, engage. You can talk to the rest of us afterwards when we're done. I see we have a question.
You were talking earlier about how money is a major problem in politics.
Yes.
Can you address how this affects money?
So Final Five alone will not fix money in politics, but what it will do is it's a tangential effect. It will make all the people who want to dump money in to do negative attack ads, which is what most of the money is spent these days. It will make people think twice about how they allocate their funding. Because instead of having to badmouth one person like we do today, you now got to decide, am I going to badmouth all 4 other people in this? And that's like, do I dilute the limited amount of resources that I have, or do I find a way to get even more money to go do this, right? So it's going to make them think twice about that. Very good question, though. You know, Tracy has cards. I think there's cards on your table. We'd love you to join us as we try to pass Final Five. We think it's a great cause. And you can write a letter to the editor at the right time, speak out with us when we have those public hearings, which we're going to try to get next term. Lots of ways you can help. All right, we'll take any questions if there are any.
Could I just tell how to sign up for
Go ahead.
our newsletter? Sorry to interrupt. So because there are no bills currently before the legislature, so we're doing events like this, and we're trying to build up a database of people that are supportive of this effort. And the way you do that is you sign up for our email newsletter. That's all we use it for. We send it out about once a month. We keep you informed on progress on all 4 of the initiatives. We don't sell the data to anybody or anything like that. There's a couple ways you can get on the newsletter. You can just fill this out if you want. There should be some cards like this. And then we will enter you in the database for our newsletter. Or if you want to use your phones again, on the back side of these blue cards, there's a QR code and you can enter your information back. So either one of those work. And feel free to take these with you. It's kind of a handy thing to share with someone. What did you do last weekend? Oh, I went to last week I went and heard this Final Five voting talk.
Tremendous Final Five.
Thank you. And you can leave them with this if they want some more information.
And if you give me the information, is it okay if I put it on the website?
Oh, please
Absolutely,
do.
absolutely.
And we'll send you a email afterwards that includes the link that they can just click on the link to sign up.
So have it right after their description of the presentation, under the presentation tab, and I'll just add that to it. Okay.
Perfect.
All right,
Look,
let's give a round of applause.
I'll close with one quote, all right? This is Senator Ted Stevens, the longest serving senator in Alaska in Alaskan history. He said this: to hell with politics. Let's do what's right for Alaska. Our hope at Voters First is that after we pass Final Five, or politicians will say, to hell with politics, let's do what's right for Wisconsin. You guys have been great. Thank you very much.